Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Jahaneman. Jahaneman, your own channel. And today we are starting a new episode on Cloud 9 with Dr. Halima Sadia. And it's my privilege and honor to have a personality as my first guest on this show, Mr. Arun Sharma from Singapore. Mr. Arun Sharma is a CA by profession and a trainer, life coach by passion. Arun Sharma is a businessman consultant. He is a life coach and keynote speaker. Mr. Arun is a fellow chartered accountant and has a rich experience of over 30 years with global clients in business consulting, structuring, trade structuring, business re-engineering, due to diligence and global accounting. He practices and believes in detached involvement, passion with awareness, enlightened billionaire, and enriching society. Mr. Arun will be sharing in this show not only his professional experiences, but his personal life experiences. So I wholeheartedly welcome Mr. Arun Sharma to my show on Cloud 9 with Dr. Halima Sadia. Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. Arun Sharma. Welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you.
How are
Dr.
you?
I'm good. I'm good, Dr. Halima.
So it's really a great honor to have you here on this show. And my viewers are global, but basically since we are based in Delhi, so mostly from Delhi, and when they see anybody from Singapore or from other countries, they are so delighted and excited to listen to them. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, ma'am.
So, Mr. Arun Sharma, please let me know. It is said that honahar birwa ke chikne chikne path. The child shows that in future he is going to be a successful person and he has a bright future. You tell us about your childhood, about your early life, and about your education, that how was it, whether you were very well aware that you are going to be one day in Singapore having a successful life, or it was vice versa.
In my early childhood, I was a normal child, like any other child. And I never had any big ambition, or I did not even know that one day I would land up in Singapore. I was like a normal child, playing with all kinds of games and getting scolding from my parents for not studying. And I was not a very bright student in my younger days. But as I started going in higher in my classes, I started taking my studies a little seriously. Till about class 10, I was not so serious. And I was not a first divisioner till class 10. Then suddenly, when I passed out my class 10, then from class 11, 12, I became a little serious and started taking my studies a little seriously. But still, I did not become the best student because they were very, you understand, the competition is huge in India.
I know, yes.
And finally, I studied in St. Xavier's College. And along with that, I also started doing my chartered accountancy. So when my college used to be in the morning 6 to 9:40, and at 9:40 directly from my college I used to go to office and come back home around 7 in the evening. And so that was quite a busy schedule, but I wouldn't say it was hardship. I won't call it a hardship, but it was challenging, it was entertaining, it was fun. So that way I never had any hardship in my childhood or even in later years. So let me say very frankly that I've never had any kind of hardship.
See, this is your humbleness that you are saying there was no hardship. We can imagine that going to the college, studying in the college, and then directly going to the office and studying, really it requires lots of hard work. Maybe there were not challenges or you were not taking it as challenge, but yes, of course, you worked hard to reach where you are today. So Mr. Arun Sharma, you please let us know that when you completed your education, then how this struggle from going from India to Singapore, how was this journey? Whether it was very challenging, it was your dream destination, or suddenly it had happened something and you landed in Singapore?
I started my chartered accountancy practice once I passed out my CA exam, final exam. Straight away, I started my practice. And that was a little difficult because in terms of knowledge, you are not up to date, and in terms of experience also. Anyway, but I started my own practice and I built up a good practice. Then I took one partner in my firm. Thereafter, as it happens in any professional firm, partner will not remain with you forever. After a while, after a few years, say 5 years, 7 years, they part with you. And when they part with you, they take away a lot of business from your firm. That happened with me once, twice, and third time when it happened, then I said, no, I don't have the wish to restart my practice again. Then I decided that why not I go away from Calcutta and do something other than my practice, other than my audit and income tax. I was mainly doing my audit and income tax. Then what I did, I took a sabbatical for about a month just to decide what to do. Somebody advised me, why don't you go to Bombay? Because Bombay has better financial prospects. Because I'm a finance person and there are more opportunities for me in Bombay. Then somebody said, why don't you go to Singapore? Somebody said, why don't you go to New York? Of course, I had a client in New York and he offered me, he said, if you want to come to New York, rather New Jersey, he would welcome me. He said, you're most welcome. You take the first flight, come over here. But my parents were not very inclined to let me go to New York. They said, no, that's too far from India. That's really, really far. And I agree with them. It's really, really far. Then my parents were agreeable that I should go to Bombay. But then I did not want to go to Bombay. I wanted to come to Singapore. Then I convinced my parents that going to Bombay is about 3 hours and going to Singapore is 5 hours. So hardly the difference of 2 hours. In today's world, the distance is seen in terms of time, yes, not in terms of kilometers. So they agreed finally. And then I came to Singapore. And over here, I started very small. I started doing bookkeeping, started doing menial jobs and all, because I had to maintain myself. I took a small room. I still remember, not a room, a bed sharing. And I was paying in those days $300. So which is practically for one bed. $300. So in those days I was paying because I could not afford a full house. So that is how I started. And I wouldn't call it a hardship or anything. That is how you start. A progress starts from there. If you have to climb 5th floor, you have to go via 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and then you reach to the 5th floor. So you can't call it a struggle that, no, why did I climb 1st floor and then 2nd floor? That is how you reach 5th floor. So I wouldn't call it a struggle. It was fun. It was joy. It was learning. It is experience. And whatever personality I have today, it is all because of all that, what I underwent.
Very true. Very true. So Arun Sharma was a CA and he started earning a handsome amount and he was very happy. He was leading a luxurious
I wouldn't call it a handsome amount to start with. It was a paltry amount. But then...
no, then later on, I'm talking about later on. When you are having everything in life, then what has inspired you to move from chartered accountancy to the training and to the life coaching and to guide the young generation?
You see, chartered accountancy practice is for money because I need money to run my life. And for my interest, for my passion, I needed to be a coach because before doing CA, I wanted to be a teacher, a mathematics teacher. But my parents were very against me. They did not want me to become a teacher. My grandmother was against me. She said, no, you can't be a teacher. My father also said, no, you can't. You take up any other profession, it's okay. And then my father decided for me that you have to take up CA and only CA. You cannot study anything else. And he was hell-bent upon it. And today I'm very grateful and thankful to his vision that he chose that profession for me. And it was the right profession. Today I understand. And my grandmother said, whatever you do, you cannot do a job. You have to do business. Even if you earn less, we are good with it, but you have to do business. So the seeds were sown by my father and my grandmother, I should say. So that is whatever I am today, it is because of their blessings, because of their guidance.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Arun Sharma ji. Now, you participated, you were the Toastmaster as well. So what was the ambition behind that?
It so happened a friend of mine once carried me to a person named Dr. Ernest Chen. That was sometime in October 2014. And then we were just chit-chatting, having coffee together. And he asked me, would you like to come to Toastmasters? I said, what is that? What do you do there? He said, no, it's a speech club. You just come and we are going to talk. We'll discuss and have fun. I said, okay, I don't mind. Let me come and try. I went with him for the first time. And then I did not know that he'll push me deep into the meeting. And then I was asked to speak on a topic, and it's called table topic. And you wouldn't believe, Dr. Halima, I froze. I could not speak for 1 minute. I could not complete my topic. I froze. I was shivering. I was nervous. And that aspect of my personality I had never experienced. I had never seen. I never knew that I can also become nervous. I never knew that even I could be trembling. So that was something very new about me. Then that whole night I could not sleep. I came back home. I was quite upset. I was not happy with myself. I said, this cannot go on with me. This has to be changed. Fast forward 2018, I started speaking on big stage, started addressing international audience, started traveling around the world to make speeches. And everything changed within 4 years. From a person who could not speak for 1 minute, I could speak for hours and hours after that.
Just 4 years, just 4 years.
Yeah, it took me 4 years. Yes.
No, thank you. I can understand that from single minute to the long speeches and keynote addresses and taking the master classes, how much you must have practiced and worked and how much you have put in efforts. But the best part of your personality, I like it, that everything you say, that it was fun. By the end of the day, it was fun. That fun aspect of your personality, I really liked it. And congratulations for that. Mr. Arun, I was searching for you. Nowadays the Google is the biggest university. So I was searching about you on the Google before coming for this show. I found that you have some school somewhere in Jharkhand, if I am right.
Yes.
Let me just show you the clipping that I come across, and that has taken my attention towards that. Yes. So CA Arun Sharma runs school, RGS Gurukulam, in memory of his father, Ram Sharma Gurukulam, in Dumka in Jharkhand. And the school provides balanced education with cultural outlook and the style of Finland education system for the dropout kids. So really it was like great. I was greatly impressed. Will you please just throw some light on this project?
I always had an ambition to do something because I've always received more than what I deserve in life. Whatever I deserved, I always got more than that. So it was my time to pay back to society. I tried, before this project also, I tried to open a school in West Bengal in some suburbs, but unfortunately it did not work out. I tried on 2 occasions and I flopped on both the occasions. Thereafter, I came across Swamiji. I mean, of course, I spoke to him on the phone. And you wouldn't believe, on one phone, one meeting on the phone, we decided that we'll go for this project. He told me, I have a dream, I want to open a school. I said, what stops you from doing it? He said, I don't have money. I said, okay, there I fit in. I'll put in the money, you run the school. And that was the whole equation. And that is how And I told him, tomorrow only I'll send you some money. You start working from tomorrow. He said, we'll see after it. No, I said, no, nothing in future. You start from tomorrow. I was in that much of hurry. So by now we have already 20 odd rooms and we are trying to have 30 odd rooms in our school. Until about class 8, we have already received approval from Jharkhand government. And we are already rated as one of the best schools in that area. So I'm very happy about it. It's very satisfying for me. And it's in memory of my father, Ram Gopal Sharma. So that was my best way to pay homage to my father. And I wanted to do something for the society. And you'll be happy, Dr. Halima, I also started a clinic in the name of my mother.
Okay.
In that same campus. My mother left for heavenly abode in this last November. So thereafter, I wanted to do something in her name. And so I started a clinic called Kamla Seva Sadan.
Okay.
So that's a small clinic. We are not doing a great job over there. We are treating hardly 4 or 5 people a day. But then it's okay. A beginning has been made. And I'm very hopeful. I want to make it into a big hospital. So one day it will happen. I'm very sure about it.
So it said that something is better than nothing, and you have started in both the sections, education and health. These two sectors are the most important sectors for any human society. And it is said that the one who opens a school closes the door of the prison, because we are saving the children from becoming criminals. If they don't get right education, naturally they are going to be on the wrong path. So Mr. Arun Sharma, the people are with us, and they have come especially to listen to you on the theme of this on Cloud 9. The theme for today was money management and the mind management. So I would request you first throw some light on the mind management, and then we'll move to the money management.
If there are any specific questions, I would like to address that. But anyway, let me start the ball rolling. Mind can be your best friend, or mind can be your worst enemy. I mean, who's the boss? Is mind your boss or you are mind's boss? So that will make heaven out of hell or hell out of heaven. So it all depends. So I will be happy if somebody asks me a question related to mind or related to money. So that will be better. So
yes, you are right. Here we have a question from Vishnu, and Mr. Vishnu is asking, Mr. Vishnu, I'll unmute you. You please ask yourself.
I have written in the chat box already.
Okay.
So you want me to ask, or you yourself would like to ask?
You can ask, ma'am.
Okay.
I'm asking, what is the source of your core energy actually?
What is the source of your core energy?
Now, energy comes from within. Energy comes from prayers. Energy comes from meditation. Energy comes from money. Energy comes from serving others. So if you're doing any of this or all of this together, there'll be no dearth of energy. Energy does not come by having vitamin C tablets or, vitamin B complex tablets. It comes by serving the society. So if you're on the right path, I mean, energy is not a problem. You will be full of energy. Point in case is our Prime Minister Modi. He works 18 hours a day. At this age of probably 70, how does he get energy? Because he's walking the right path. And when you're walking on the right path, you get all the energy. So that is my answer. Anybody else?
Thank you very much. Yes, let me take some more questions. If you have any questions, please let me know. Either you write in the chat box or raise up your hand, and we'll get back to you to take your questions. Santosh ji is here. Yes, Mr. Santosh. Santosh Sharaf ji.
Yeah, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes, Santosh Sharaff ji. It seems that there
Probably
some
he,
issues.
he's not able to.
Yes, yes. Now
Oh, he is able to, yeah. Yeah, you want to ask any question, Santosh? When it comes to money matter, till he asks a question, let me keep on speaking. What happens is, normally people ask me about money, and I always tell them that you need to remain in high awareness, first of all. And how do you get into high awareness? There are many ways, and the easiest way is meditation. Then you must remain in high frequency. High frequency is when you are in high frequency, you are in high energy, you attract higher things in life. For instance, there are two kinds of relationships. So you will attract higher relationships, better salary, better jobs, better prospects, better orders, everything better. If you are at a higher energy, if you are at a lower energy, so you will attract jobs of your level. Then you must have a positive belief system, that positivity of mind, that mindset has to be positive. Normally people have very contradictory belief system when it comes to money. I've seen people, they say money is the root cause of all evil. Now, once you say this, and then you are chasing money, it will be very elusive for you to attract money. You can't attract money with that kind of mindset. That on one hand, you say money is the root cause of all evil, and the very next moment, you are running after money. That cannot happen. That you must be in sync with your thoughts. Anybody has a question?
yes, we have Mr. Shaman.
Shaman, yes.
Yes, Shaman, please.
Yes. Sir, as your father knows that you will become a CA, and all the persons who are growing up now, they doesn't know how to choose their career. So have you heard about DMIT test? Can you know me in the detail, please, about DMIT test?
I don't know exactly what test are you talking about, but I understand what you mean. Some kind of personality test they do, and they find out what career is more suitable for you. Whether you'll be a better engineer or better numbers person like accountant, or you'll be an artist. So they tell you what kind of choice, whether you are a left brain oriented person or whether you are a right brain oriented person. So depending on those, they advise you about a career, and then you choose a career. So that's the right way. See, in astrology also we do the same. We go to a priest, we show him our palm, and he reads our palm and he tells us, okay, you should choose this. So basically he's also doing the same thing. So you should go for such tests like DMIT test and other tests. I remember in Calcutta, there was a company called Mindtree, if I correctly remember. My father had taken me to that company before he put me into chartered accountancy. And I don't know what did he speak with those people. And so I was not party to that conversation. So he forced me to become a chartered accountant.
Yes, thank you very much. And I think that in those days, the fathers used to interact less, but they were very observant. And they used to observe their children, and the number of children were even more in those days. The people have 5, 6, 7, 8 children, but still father used to have the observation of each and every habit of the child, and the way the child is writing, the learning and everything. Nowadays, everything has a problem of shortage of time. Even the parents, they don't have time for the children. And when you ask the parents, where are you busy? They say, we are earning for our children. They are earning for the children, but they don't have time for the children. That's the exactly problem. So when Arunji, we talk about the mind management, so I'm not very clear about that. Mind management means that we can manage our thoughts, or we can manage the minds of others, minds of clients, or minds of friends? What exactly does it mean, mind management?
Now, the biggest management
Yes.
is self-management. And when we talk about self-management, we talk about mind management. Because when we talk about happiness or you talk about sorrow, it is all a state of mind. Happiness is a state of mind. If you think you're happy, you're happy. You think you're unhappy, you're unhappy. You think you're successful, you are successful. So your mind decides for you. Your mind tells you that yes, you like it or you don't like it. So everything is within your mind. So if you can control your mind, what happens is most of us, we are driven by our mind. Whatever we want to do, whatever is my desire, I want to achieve it. Whether it is legitimate or it is not legitimate, because it is my desire. I want to acquire a Ferrari. Whether I'm capable of getting or not capable of getting is beside the point. I want to get a Ferrari. Now, this is what your mind tells you. But mind has to be controlled by something called intellect. If the barrier of intellect is not there on the mind, then that mind is unbridled. Mind can go haywire. Mind can go amok. Mind can do havoc. So you have to control your mind with your intellect. Because everything is, whatever you desire may not be legitimate, may not be possible, may not be reasonable even. So mind has to be managed. And how do you manage your mind? So every day, if you are giving strength to your intellect, who's the boss of mind? Every day. So what do you have? You do prayers, you are doing meditation, you are doing yoga, you are having positivity of mind. If the wrong thoughts come to mind, what do we do? When we go to a restaurant, I ordered for samosa and the fellow gives me idli. I tell him, no, I did not order, take it back. Similarly, when a wrong thought comes to my mind, I tell my mind, no, I did not ask for you. Please go away. So let the right thoughts come to my mind, because mind is endless. There are, infinite number of thoughts running into the mind. And if every thought you attach with, you'll go crazy. You'll go bonkers. Mind is huge. Mind is unlimited. Mind is reckless. You don't know what are you going to think after 10 seconds. Right now,
yes,
you predict what is your mind going to think after 10 seconds. You don't know. So to quieten your mind, this is a monkey mind jumping from this to this to this to this everywhere. So if you can tame, if you can, manage your monkey mind, nothing like it, then you are the boss, then you can achieve whatever you want. So first stage is quietening the mind, and second stage is no mind. So the philosophers or the big yogis, they have also spoken about no mind. So you are into a state of enlightenment where there is no mind.
Yes, thank you very much, Arunji. And now it's very clear what exactly is mind management. And when I am conversing with you, while conversation, I can just make out very easily that you are a very religious person or very pious person or spiritual, I must say, spiritual person. So a spiritual person is talking about the money management. This is like contradiction, it seems. People who are spiritual, they should not have any concern about the money.
I was expecting this question. I was expecting this question from you.
Yes.
That not only you, everybody tells me that on one hand you're trying to make a lot of money, on the other hand you're trying to be spiritual. My answer to this is money is highly spiritual. In the Hindu philosophy, money is considered Lakshmi. And Lakshmi is goddess of wealth, goddess of money. So money is spiritual. And if there is no money in life, you can't call yourself successful. You cannot do any charity. You cannot help others. In this time of COVID, if anybody falls sick, can you help that person? You cannot. If you have no money, you can be philosophical till you run into a problem. Your son wants admission into a good college. You cannot help him because you have no money. So money is the basis on which we run life. So money is important. Money is not the most important thing, but it is important. If you don't give importance to money, what will happen is there'll be an imbalance in your life. You have to balance. There are 4 aspects: money, health, relationship, and spiritualism. All the four are important. And to me, spiritualism is most important, because once you grow higher on a spiritual dimension, all the other dimensions would increase automatically. See, for a monk, for a sadhu, he need not focus on money dimension, but we are a householder. We have to focus on all the four dimensions. But for a sadhu, three dimensions are good enough: health, relationship, and spiritualism. Even sadhu needs relationship, because he needs to have relationship with his disciples, with his colleagues, with his boss, with his mentor. It's not that he doesn't need relationship management. If he also needs health management. If he doesn't manage his health, what will happen? His journey of spiritualism will come to an end.
You're right, absolutely. So it is said that people say that money cannot buy pleasure or happiness, but money can buy those things that give you pleasure and happiness. So this is important, that we have to have the balance amount and balance between all these four. That is very important.
No. I'll differ with you a little bit over there.
Yeah.
I don't want to be rich for my sake. I want to be rich to enrich the society. That's my philosophy. If I make more money, I can make a better school, I can make a better hospital, I can help more people during COVID times, I can create more entrepreneurs. So I can do all that. That is my life mission.
Exactly. Even we have the people who have said that if poverty comes in the form of a human being, I would have killed, because this poverty is the basis of many problems. So we have to earn money, but we have to have the intention of helping the people and spending in the right way. So you are absolutely right. Now we have many questions here. Let me take those questions. Kavita ji wanted to ask the questions directly, so may I request Kavita ji to kindly unmute and then ask the questions. Then I'll go to Mr. Aziz and Mr. Vishnu once again. Yes, Kavita ji.
Yeah, unmute, yes.
मैं अरुण सर से बात पूछना चाहती हूँ, अरुण भैया से, कि ऐसा बोला जाता है कि हमारे माइंड में 24 घंटे में 60,000 थॉट आते हैं. इसका मतलब यही हुआ आपकी सक्सेस का राज ये है कि आप माइंड को कंट्रोल करते हैं, माइंड आपको कंट्रोल नहीं कर सकता है. आप इतने स्ट्रॉन्ग हैं स्पिरिचुअली, मेंटली और लिटिल बिट फिजिकली, कि आपका ये पावर है कि आप अपने माइंड को ऐसा कंट्रोल करते हैं कि आप सब जो चाहते हैं वो आप कर लेते हैं. तो क्या मैं सही हूँ इस चीज में? थोड़ा सा आप मुझे इस बारे में बताएं.
You are right that there are 60,000 thoughts in a day, in a human mind. And if you don't manage your mind, what happens is, when we talk about, I'll digress a bit over here. When we talk about karma is also done by your thoughts, by your, the way you, by not only by doing or by speaking, it's also by thinking. So when thoughts come to your mind, and when you attach with those thoughts, then that becomes a karma. So if 60,000 thoughts come to your mind, that means 60,000 karma you are performing in a day, which is huge, which is phenomenal, and which can make you crazy, which can make you mad. So the only way is, first stage is you watch your thoughts. Thoughts are coming in your mind, thoughts are going away. You be a witness to your thought. You be a watcher of your thought. Keep watching your thought. The thoughts which are relevant for you. For instance, I'm sitting in a mathematics exam. So that time, the thoughts are relevant for me, those mathematical thoughts. So I must attach with those thoughts and solve the problem. If I'm doing an accountancy problem, I must attach with those thoughts, relevant thoughts, and solve the problem. But other thoughts I need not attach, because they are irrelevant, unrelated. And every thought is unrelated. You don't have a logical thought. You're thinking about, did I lock my house? Then the second moment, did I reply to his email? Or did I take my medicine? I forgot the key in the car, and all ridiculous. Oh, I was insulted in that party, and I don't have a good dress to wear for that wedding. So all these thoughts are coming. Within 1 minute, you had so many thoughts, and all the thoughts are unrelated. And if you try to attach with every thought, you'll go crazy, you'll go mad. You will be unproductive. You'll be good for nothing. So you watch your thoughts, and gradually, when you grow a little bit more in spiritualism, then thoughts will reduce. lesser thoughts will come to your mind. Still, if when you grow, no thoughts will come. It will be like switch. You switch on, thoughts will come. You switch off, thoughts will not come. It's like I'm using my hand. I use my hand when I want to use. I'm not moving my hand all the time, but the mind is moving all the time. Mind is continuously moving. So you have to stop it. You tell your mind, come on, stop it. So you have to stop it. And then the last stage is go beyond the mind. Because mind can only think whatever you have seen, you have studied, you have watched, you have heard. Mind can only think those things. Mind cannot go beyond whatever you have experienced in life. If you have seen, you have read something on internet, mind will think about it. If you have heard something in your childhood, you have seen a movie, you have read a book, so mind can only comprehend those things. If I tell you about a fruit which you have never heard, you cannot go, your mind cannot comprehend. So when you go beyond the mind, then you become a Nobel Prize winner. Then you do something marvelous, something which does not exist in our system. So these are the stages of mind management. And as you rightly said that, yes, I do that. I manage my mind. I'm fully in control of my mind. I agree with that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And it is really very helpful for all of us. Here I am reading the question of Aziz Rahman, who is asking, interested to know about Finland Pattern School and government approval procedure about syllabus. What difficulties have been faced from moving to a state approved or CBSE based syllabus to Finland Pattern?
No, we don't follow the syllabus of Finland. We follow the pattern of Finland only. The syllabus is Jharkhand Education Board syllabus, because we are approved by Jharkhand Education Board. So we follow the pattern of Finland. Finland is considered the best education system in the world, at least in the primary education. In tertiary, in higher education, America is considered #1. But in children's education, Finland is considered #1 in the whole world. So we are very fortunate. We get some teachers from there. They come on their own. We don't pay for them. They come on their own to India and they stay in our school. They teach our students. And while they are going back, they donate whatever money they have. They give it back to the school and then they go. So this is the kind of passion they have. So we get a lot of help from Finland.
Thank you very much. I hope, as Mr. Aziz, you received your answer.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Welcome. So now let's move to Mr. Vishnu.
And Mr. Aziz, if he wants to know more about Finland, I can put him with an expert in Finland. I can give him the email address and he can directly, they will help him with the education pattern and online guidance also they can give them.
Even though they are happy to train some staff who wanted to learn their patterns and wanted
yes, they'll be happy to do it. In fact, in our school also, we are doing teachers training in our school. We are doing, so from the entire district, all the teachers come and we teach them Finland pattern of teaching. So you can contact with us and you can be part of us.
Definitely.
Okay.
Because I am running a school in my village. So I'm still thinking to get some training for teachers, to uplift the quality of the education in the village.
That will be wonderful. We'll be happy to associate. I can put you on to the right person. There's a lady in charge for us. So she looks after the entire, she coordinates all the teachers. So we can put you on to her.
That will be great. Thank you very much. I will contact you, inshallah.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Aziz. Even in that regard, teachers training regard, even Jahaneman can help you because Jahaneman has a special program on teachers training that is called FELM, Future Educational Leadership and Management Program. So be in touch with Mr. Arun Sharma ji and with Jahaneman. We have the people who are ready to help anyone whosoever wants help.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Aziz, and thank you, Arun Sharma ji. Now we have the next question from Vishnu, Indore, India. Seeing the worst scenario right now due to pandemic and shops and industries are stopped, don't you think the core nature of human being is charged, being long time locked in homes? Would you be the easiest future way to earn very good money? Do you think the all way or style or business would take different shape. You know, due to pandemic, he is thinking that everything is closed. So now how we are going to revive everything up once again, the business, the jobs, everything. And I'm very much concerned about the educational sector. You know, educational sector is suffering a lot. The teachers, the management, and the students, everybody.
Before answering that question, let me tell you what did I do in the pandemic. Before the pandemic, I used to do my usual CA practice. But during the pandemic, I've done what I could not do otherwise. I have read Bhagavad Gita, which I'd been thinking for last 20 years that I'll be reading it. But in pandemic gave me a chance to read that book. We started a forum called Gitokt, and therein it enabled me to read that book. Then I started conducting meditation classes in the morning, 4:30 India time. Every day I'm conducting a meditation class. I am writing 2 books, one on breath, one on public speaking. And I'm also doing some soul searching. So whatever skills I'm lacking, I'm trying to learn in this pandemic, because this has given me an opportunity to stay at home 24/7. And in this opportunity, I must utilize to the fullest. So there are so many courses. Even Cambridge and Oxford is offering you free course. These universities are very, very expensive, but they are offering free courses in this pandemic. So we can take advantage of all this. There are so many free classes going on online. We can take advantage of all this. And I have taken advantage of a lot of such classes. Now, coming to the specific question, during this pandemic, how to solve this problem? The first objective in this pandemic should be to keep yourself healthy, to keep yourself alive. That should be the primary objective. If you have no health, if you're not alive, then any planning is futile planning. So the first objective is only to be alive, to come out of this pandemic. That should be your primary objective. Now, second objective is how do you make money? Now, to that, let me answer very specifically. Whatever is your skill set, say you are a chef in a 5-star hotel. Let me take this example. Now the hotel is closed. What do? You can start an online class for cooking. You can teach people how to cook. And there is everything sells on internet. Everything sells. You have to give classes maybe for $5 a class, maybe $10 a class, or you can teach people very specific things, how to make gajar ka halwa. There will be so many millions of people who want to learn this. You can give them one-to-one coaching on internet, how to make tadka dal or whatever, you know. So what I'm trying to tell you, whatever is your skill, you have to convert that skill online skill, because now this is a time where whatever skills you have, you are a yoga teacher. Like I was telling Catherine that you should teach yoga online. No, the days of going to somebody's house or somebody visiting you, all that is over. And maybe for times to come in the future also, this trend may become that everything is online. So whether you want to study, or whether you want to teach, or whether you want to be a trainer, or whether you want to be a doctor, even the doctors are giving medical advice only online. So whatever talent you have, you convert that, you try to take advantage of that talent through your online, because you have to go to the digital mode. For instance, I conducted breath classes. I conducted online. I conducted public speaking classes. I conducted them online. So that is the whole trend. You have to do it. Now, if you are rigid, you don't want to do it, then you'll be suffering. So whatever little bit of money you want to make, it can only be done if you are converting your talent online. So whatever talent you have, it can be converted. Of course, I agree. There are many kinds of job which cannot be done online. For instance, you are a cleaner. You cannot do cleaning online. But if you are a chef, you can teach people. You can tell them, I'll teach you. You make your menu, I'll guide you how to prepare your complete menu for today. I'll guide you. I'll charge you $100. I'll tell you how to make your breakfast, lunch, dinner, everything. You can do all that. And that is happening in this world. So this is my answer to you.
Thank you very much. And I believe that Mr. Vishnu has got the answer. Yes, Mr. Vishnu. And now moving to the next question, Shamanji has asked that he has heard that in foreign countries, children even from 9 to 18 years of age, they invest in the share market. And while in India, it is considered that if we invest in the share market, it is going to be a waste and we are going to lose our money. So if children want to invest money, which thing can they invest in? What is the best for them?
Share market is speculative. I mean, you may make money, you may lose money. But my advice to you is at this tender age of 9 to 18 or even up to 21, don't invest into share market because you are going to be defocused. Because this is a time when you should focus on your primary skills. Because if you go into share market and if you remain in share market for 2 to 3 years, then what happens is all your life you have to be in share market only. One who has become an investor in share market, one who has become an active player in share market, he cannot do anything else because here within 5 minutes he earns a good sum or he loses a good sum. So he cannot do a job after that. The whole month he's going to do a job and at the end of the month he gets a salary of 25,000 rupees. So that is not tolerable. So I would advise anybody, especially a student, to go for share market at this age. You should go at a much later stage and go as an investor. Don't go as a speculator.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Mr. Arunji. With this, we come to the end of our show. If there is any question, last question, then we can take that. And that is going to be the last question. Vishnu ji is Sanjay ji. Sanjay ji is here. May I request Sanjay ji to ask the questions? Mr. Sanjay. There are two Sanjay, Sanjay Dubey and Sanjay Jain. May I request both of them to ask if they have any question? Yes, Sanjay ji.
Yeah. Good morning,
Yeah.
Arun.
Good evening. Yes, yes, good
Good
evening.
evening, Sanjay Jain here.
Yes, yes, please.
It's not Sanjay Dubey, okay? My question is, there are many innovation is there in worldwide, and the people have limited need. When the innovation and innovative thing come in the market, the need comes thereafter, which is sometime essential also, sometime non-essential need also. So this creates lot of race in the market that I will have to buy this. Like in India, the people are having need of X things, but they are always having X plus 10, X plus 20, X plus 1,000, which is not necessary for them or for me or for you, anyone. So the people, why the people are behind this all things which is not necessary, and what they should do?
Answer to this question is, we all are following Western model. Western model is consumerism. They create need in the society. They will advertise a product. They'll show you 10 times on the television. A beautiful heroine will show that product to you and you get enticed. You want to use that product. It may be of use to you. It may not be of use to you, but you feel it has a lot of use to you. So that is consumerism and that cannot be avoided. That will remain. We are into such time. We are on internet. We are reading newspapers. We are watching advertisements on internet, on cinema, everywhere. So you cannot escape that. That is number one. You are not a sadhu. You are not a monk. You are a human being. You will get affected by it. Number one. Number two, I remember Abdul Kalam had made a statement long time ago that if you want to eradicate poverty in India, it can be only eradicated through technology. It can only be eradicated through technology. So you have to employ technology for the means of poor people. For instance, I'll give you one example. Like this government started transferring money. Instead of giving direct money to their hand, they started giving money to their bank account, direct transfer. Now that is one use of technology. So directly you are giving it to them. There could be many other examples of technology, whether reaching out for education. Because the new model of education could only be that you reach out to the homes of the student. Now the student will not come to the school. In this pandemic, no child can come, and we cannot predict how long will this go on. So through internet, the school should reach out to the home through technology. So if you want to remove poverty, if you want to improve the lives of the masses, it can only be through technology. So it is not a bad thing that when new ideas come to market, there is a need, there is a demand. Because most of these, for instance, mobile phone did not exist 30 years ago. Mobile phone did not exist. Now, can you think about a person who can live without a mobile phone? Probably nobody. Nobody can live. I mean, when you go for Vipassana for a few days and you are asked to give up your mobile, I mean, that's life shattering. You cannot do that. Even if you forget your mobile for half an hour at your home and you leave your home, you become restless. So technology has become an important part of your life. You cannot escape it. But the question is, yes, we should take advantage of technology. We should not misuse technology. You don't use technology for the wrong things, for crime, for socially unacceptable practices. Don't use technology for that. You use technology for your betterment. You can use technology. For instance, you are locked in home. You can do the best course in the world free of cost. From the Oxford University, sitting at home, you can do it. Now, that is the beautiful advantage of technology. So technology always is not a bad thing. It depends on the person. It's like a blade. A blade may be a bad thing for a pickpocket. It could be a good thing for a barber.
Thank you. Thank you very much. What a lovely example of blade. And although the time of the show is over, but we cannot disappoint the beautiful lady here, Miss Kavita. She has another question. So Miss Kavita, please go ahead.
Thanks for your wonderful reply.
Thank you, Sanjay.
मैं अरुण भैया से पूछना चाहूंगी, आपने एक बहुत अच्छी बात बोली कि जो सोसाइटी से हमको मिला है वो मेरे को सोसाइटी को रिटर्न करना है. तो मैं ये बोलना चाहती हूँ, जो हाउस वाइफ है इंडिया में, जैसे सिटिंग एट होम, वो लोग मतलब कुछ कर नहीं रहे हैं, सिर्फ हाउस वाइफ हैं, तो आप 2-4 टिप्स दें हमें कि हम सोसाइटी को कैसे बैक दें, नेचर को कैसे मतलब कुछ दें, हमारा क्या हो, हम कैसे बैक दें उन लोगों को.
I'll tell you some ways to give back to society. If you have money, give charity. If you have time, give your time. If you go to old age home, you go to old age home just to talk to old people. That will be a big social service. I tell you, in old age home, people are dying because there is no companion. There's nobody to talk to them. They're so lonely. I mean, so if you can go to old age home once a week for 1 hour and talk to old people, they'll be more than happy because their children, they don't visit them anymore. If you are talented, you know how to knit a sweater. You can teach students in my school how to knit a if you know cooking, you can teach students how to do cooking. If you know how to do yoga, you can teach our students. So anything you can teach online, whatever talent you have. If you're a storyteller, you can teach our students once a week how to tell a good story. Tell them small stories. So you can contribute to society in any way. It does not mean that if you don't have money, you cannot. I'll give you an example of that person in Gaya. What was his name? Dasrath Maji. He was totally illiterate, very poor. He did not have means to have 1 square meal. He belonged to a very lower stratum of society. But what did he do? He made a road covering one side of the village to the other village. He cut down the travel time of 55 kilometers into 15 kilometers. And how much time it took? 22 years. Relentlessly he worked. So if person like Dasrath Maji could create or contribute to society, all of us are capable of doing something for society. It will be an excuse to say that no, I cannot do. this is an excuse. I mean, you can teach them anything. You know how to make a good vegetable. You teach somebody free of cost on the internet. That's good enough.
Thank you.
So
Thank you
there are
very
many
much.
ways to.
Thank you, Kavita ma'am. I think you have got some ideas, and the homemakers can do wonders. And at least you can have a circle, because nowadays I have seen that homemakers are under lots of mental pressure, and emotional stability is required for them more than anyone else. So you can have a group, you can just chit chat online, make them happy, just crack some jokes, have some singing and other things. That's also a great service, because if you are mentally happy and if you are emotionally strong, then you can face any challenge in life. Thank you very much, Kavita ji.
During COVID time, that will be a great service, whatever you are suggesting.
Thank you. Thank you very much. May I request Dr. Ram to kindly propose a vote of thanks to Mr. Arun Sharma ji, who is on cloud 9 with Dr. Halima Saadia today, and he has done a tremendous, marvelous, and fabulous job. I can see in the comments in the chat box, the people are so happy and for the wonderful session. Thank you very much, Mr. Arun. And now over to you, Dr. Ram.
Yeah, it is great pleasure to listen to Mr. Arun Sharma. He is having knowledge storage in his mind, and he is contributing a lot for the society. I went outside. I wanted to come back, but it is getting delayed. Moreover, it is a good thing. Dr. Halima is initiating this Cloud9, which is giving a lot of connection for the community who wanted to listen for wonderful speeches like Mr. Arun Sharma, what he has shared so far. The mind management and money management, which are very, very essential. And the spiritual mentality is giving the aspiration and the goodwill for the people who wanted to get the empowerment. So we are all very glad to have him today. It's all our good thing to move forward for the fortune to have in our hand. During this COVID-19, it is all required for the people who want to strengthen their way of ongoing things. So this kind of talks will empower the people. We are looking forward for more people to come and join. Please share in your network and invite more people. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ram. Thank you very much. It was really very motivating for us. And now with this, we come to the end of our show. I express my gratitude and thank to Mr. Arun Sharma ji, and I thank all the participants who are here. Let me see that who all are here. Let me thank Mr. Amar, Mr. Sanjay Dubey, Mr. Vishnu, and Ms. Kavita, Mr. Sanjay Jain, Dr. Ram, Aziz Rahman ji, Catherine, and Mr. M.H. Kamal, Mr. Santosh, Ms. Aisha Siddiqa, Ms. Gurpreet Kaur, Ms. Nargis Jahan, Ms. Geraldine, and Ms. Themozial. I'm sorry if I wrongly pronounced. Thank you very much for being with us. It was really a very enlightening session. And you are most welcome on Cloud9. If you are doing something great and you want to share with the society, with your fellow friends, and you want to motivate them with your golden words, like Mr. Arun Sharma has done just now, so you are most welcome. Please contact us and be on Cloud9 with Dr. Halima Saadia. Thank you very much. Take care.